It's another week. It's another podcast. This is the We Are One, You Are Two PlayStation podcast. I'm your host for all 123 episodes, Rob Fanzo, joined by my co-host, the always magnificent, never malicious, Matt Rhodes.
Hey-o! How you doing there, Robert?
Oh, I'm awake. I am awake. I'm alive.
Yeah, that's good. Awake and alive. That's always a good thing. I mean, I will let the listeners know that this is the fourth time, maybe fifth time that you've said that to me. You know, most of them were off air, but it's nice to know that you are actively trying to convince yourself that you are still awake and here to do this podcast today.
Yes. And I can't promise that I know what I'm talking about, but we're going to try.
All right.
We're going to try. Matt, this is an interesting show because sometimes it's a little slower, and I feel like this was a little bit of a slower week if I remember correctly. I might be misremembering. That's the problem. But it's a little bit slower of a week. But on the plus side of things, we've still got plenty to talk about, and we're going to get through it all. But it's also an interesting week because you and I both, by the time this podcast goes live, I've already finished The Last of Us Part 2, and you're about to finish it. And so we'll do a spoiler cast as well because I thought about it, and I know that you and I are going to end up talking about it ad nauseum anyway, so we might as well just record our thoughts and put it out there for people to listen to. Because I just listened to a spoiler cast myself a couple of days ago. It was 4 hours long.
Ooh.
And yeah, and they echoed some of my thoughts. They brought up some ideas I had never thought of. And then they clearly did not cover some of the things that I want to talk about. So we'll get it out there so that if you have listened to a spoiler cast before for The Last of Us Part 2, tune into ours because you might hear something that you haven't heard yet. So, because I've got some points I haven't seen made yet anywhere else. Matt,
plus, we have very unique views, right, Robert? We have very unique point of views, okay? We're think outside the boxers, you know?
Hopefully. Hopefully,
yeah.
So, but anyway, you know, if you like what you hear, you can like, rate, share, subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting service, share us with your friends, make us listen to them until they like us. If not, if you want to do none of that, you can also give us $1 over at patreon.com/weare1you2, or any of the other tiers that we have, certainly to help us keep this podcast running. Hopefully, Matt, too, my lights stay on. I know we got some real bad, nasty thunder and lightning in the distance, so we'll try to make it through this episode as quickly as possible to survive the storm and my child crying uncontrollably.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. No, she's actually pretty quiet, baby. Today, she's been a little fussy. I don't know what's going on, but I think she's got some belly issues.
Okay.
You know,
she's belly aching.
We'll see. Belly aching, literally. Anyway, Matt, let's start this dad jokes. Yeah, I love dad jokes. I can't wait till she's older and I can tell dumb dad jokes. And she'll actually laugh at them for a little bit too.
Right.
But let's start this episode like we do every episode by talking about what we've been playing. Because I've actually, you know, I have family in town, but I've actually still been able to play stuff at 2 a.m, and 3 a.m, and 4:30 a.m, and 6 a.m, whenever I'm up burping my baby. So
nice.
But I'm going to throw it over to you first. I'd like to hear what you've been playing. Obviously, we talked about The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah. That's pretty much been it. But of course, I've been playing Rocket League and Fortnite. Duh. But yeah, honestly, that's really all I've been playing. What's funny to me is you and I haven't been able to play games together because of your crazy schedule. But it is nice to see that even with you having a fresh newborn, that you are still able to just game whenever you want to a large extent. Well, maybe not whenever you want. I guess whenever the baby wants you to take care of it for a few hours
at a time.
Yeah. For a few hours at a time. But yeah, no, I've been I really dug into Last of Us. I had a friend over the weekend, and because of that, I didn't get as much gaming time in as I wanted to, or else I would have been able to finish it. But I have, I think, like the very, very last mission left. So maybe another 3 hours, maybe 7 hours. Who knows? I feel like all these missions have been dragging on very, very lengthy. They haven't really felt drug out. I mean, I know that people have been saying, I guess, that they felt it was maybe a couple hours too long.
Yes.
But I feel like it ramped up enough where I'm just like, oh, I'm like super invested and I really want to know how this ends. So as soon as we finish here, I'm going to hop on and finish the game because I can't wait to.
Based on what you told me where you're at, you've probably got about less than 3 hours left.
Okay. Yeah, I can finish that.
If I remember correctly. Yeah. And you and I have plenty to say, not just about the ending. I know that's not the biggest contention point. It is a little bit for some people. But I also have stuff to say about the game as a whole. And so we'll save that for later.
Yeah,
but yeah, I finished Last of Us 2 this week. So I'm going to dive into what I've been playing. I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before or not, but I finished What Remains of Edith Finch a couple weeks ago. And I haven't been playing it recently. I played it a couple weeks ago. And that game was one of the most pleasant surprises I've played in a while. And it was a nice, I played it when I was about halfway through The Last of Us 2, and it was a nice breather. And then right now, actually, the only two games I've been playing this week are, other than finishing up Last of Us 2, are Kunai on my Switch, which is where humanity is destroyed and only robots remain, and you are brought to life as a tablet with a body. And so, and you have two kunai, which are, like Japanese weapons, and a katana, and you have to fight off the invading robot army. But you're like this little tablet that makes all these faces as you're like wandering the post-apocalyptic robot world.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was like $12 on the Switch. I thought it was hilarious. It's a little Metroidvania. It's fun. I love it. It's a good pick up, put down kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I started because I knew I had family in town and they're staying in the room where I game. I knew that I wouldn't have too much time in here. So I fired up Gris, which is a very artsy journey-like game. And it's only supposed to be 4 to 5 hours long. I've played maybe about 2.5 hours of it. And it is phenomenal. And so you're a girl who is, I think, trying to bring color back into the world. And so you go along unlocking colors, and the world around you starts out as black and white and gray, and it starts becoming more colorful.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. It's like $6 on sale on the PSN right now. But it's really, 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 I think it's normally 18 or 15, something like that. So it's really good. All right. And it's a nice breather after The Last of Us and the heaviness of The Last of Us to have this colorful, beautiful music filled world. So, all right. That's all I've been playing. So I guess we'll just move into talking about a little bit about the news.
Ooh, yeah.
All right, Matt. So some news. That's what we're going to talk about here. All right. So I just felt like saying that. I don't know why. But here's the deal. First, if you're unclear whether or not the Battle Royale shooter is coming to Sony's console, fear not. We talked about Ubisoft entering the free-to-play Battle Royale arena with its future FPS that's currently open beta on PC, right? We talked about this game a couple weeks ago. It sounds like we're not going to have to wait long for it, though. The official Twitter page stated it's going to be coming to consoles this summer. And if you tune into Twitch streams on the PC of the open beta, you can actually unlock in-game items when the game lands on PS4. So it's worth engaging if you're interested. Of course, Ubisoft also released a Hyperfall a cinematic trailer earlier this week, which actually gives it a lot of really cool story and background story. And it reminds me a little bit of Ready Player One in some ways, but clearly not going to be a key component of the game since it is a battle royale. So I talked about this last week with you. You're not really interested in this one at all, right?
Not really. I mean, I might check it out, but yeah.
Okay. I was just curious. I know you will be interested in this next part, though. The Adventures of Layla Hassan from both Origins and Odyssey have made kind of, you finished both of those games. They weren't a big part of the game, right? They were just little small sections.
Yeah, I think a lot of people complained about Desmond, and, I feel like they kind of scaled back the out of Animus, storyline.
Yes. Well, the funny part about that is I every time I read stuff about that, people complain that they want more of it. Well, congratulations. You got your wish. because Layla's escapades may have been brief in both Odyssey and Origins, but it seems like in Valhalla, she has her own activity. A report on the PlayStation blog previews the game and talks about how you will stumble across animus glitches as you wander the English countryside. And so I don't know if that's going to wreck immersion for you or not. I feel like that would for me. But it says, quote, if a corner of the English countryside seems a bit unsynchronized, you may have stumbled across the animus anomaly. In these moments, the animus simulation of Ivor's adventure will pause while present-day protagonist Layla takes over. Navigate the anomaly to reach the data packet filled with eye-catching secrets. How do you feel about that?
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be kind of cool. For me going forward, what that says to me is like how awesome it'll be on, say, how awesome the next one will be on the new consoles and how quickly that transition will happen. It'll kind of be like jumping between the two worlds, kind of like we saw in the Ratchet and Clank demo where they like morph from one area of the map to the next.
Yes.
So that's what it kind
that
of
is
like
a good point.
Seems like to me, and it kind of for the future of the franchise seems like that would be amazing. And it kind of like also takes me back to like the BioShock Infinite and how like they kind of wanted to do that in the beginning, you know, in the very yeah, exactly. The very beginning of the thing. And, you know, there were still tears in a sense, but, you know, I can just imagine if they try to like remake Infinite now because of that and how different it would be because of the load times being so quick and, you know, how you can morph pretty much from one world to another in an instant with load times. So, you know, I feel like it'll be interesting to see how they do it with this version, but
yes,
it's the future that excites me about this article.
Yeah, so I'll be curious if you do play this on PS5 and it improves the load times.
Right.
If maybe you'll actually get that a little bit of that experience now.
Yeah, maybe.
So we'll have to see that. You know, I never really cared for maybe it's because I didn't play enough of Odyssey and Origins. I didn't really care for Layla. And so I didn't even know her name until I read this article. So I'll see if I'm excited about it or not. I actually I kind of didn't mind the way they did them before. It felt like you hit certain points and you automatically got pulled out, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
I think I'd actually prefer that to like, oh, yes, here's this awesome Viking battle, or look, I found this awesome island. Oh, wait, look, something glitchy over there.
Right.
I think that is a little immersion breaking, but that's okay. We'll see how they do it. We'll find out. Maybe it won't be as obnoxious as we think. Yeah. So, moving on. For the first time in a while, Sony and Microsoft are adopting different strategies. That seems to be kind of the last year and a half that they've been doing this. Prior to announcing 9 PlayStation 5 exclusives during a recent reveal broadcast, boss Jim Ryan reiterated that the organization, quote, believes in generations, adding, quote, we believe that when you go to all the trouble of creating a next-gen console, it should include features and benefits that the previous generation does not. However, Microsoft is adopting a different approach with Xbox Series X, with its Game Pass subscription taking center stage. It says it'll continue to release first-party titles on the aging Xbox One for a year at least. And then we, of course, have found out since then that the Xbox One X is going to be discontinued, but the Xbox One S will be continued to be manufactured. They did say, and this is where that was kind of funny, that they said, locking games to a particular piece of hardware, according to Phil Spencer, is, quote, completely counter to what gaming is about. And so instead of locking it to particular hardware, he's just going to quit making that hardware, is what I gathered. But he did I added that in there. Speaking with Games Industry Biz, he did explain we should applaud the work that is going on with the PS5 and the work that is going on with the audio to pick some of the areas that Ryan and Mark Cerny and the stuff PlayStation is focused on. We should applaud load times and fidelity of scenes and frame rate and input latency and all of these things that we focused on with the next gen. But that should not exclude people from being able to play. He says, goes on further to say, quote, people who are too caught up in device competition, end quote, are the ones who are worried about Series X's software being held back by its commitment to Xbox One. And then he goes on to talk a little bit more about how, he went on to talk a little bit more, about some of that. And then Blooper Team, who is working on an Xbox Series X exclusive, chimed in as well on Medium and said, every developer is going to find a line to say, this is the hardware that I'm going to support. But the diversity of hardware choice in PC has not held back the highest fidelity PC games on the market. The highest fidelity PC games rival anything that anybody has seen in video games. So this idea that developers don't know how to build games or game engines or ecosystem that works across a set of hardware, there's a proof point in PC that shows that's not the case, end quote. I wanted your thoughts on this because while I agree that it's great that you're not holding your stuff back, that's also why people don't upgrade their PC right away, because if the game can still run on it, they're not going to bother doing it. And people do upgrade their PCs all the time to have the prettiest graphical fidelity. So why should consoles be any different? I don't see, especially as a console gamer, I don't see a reason to buy something unless I'm going to have generational leaps. So I don't agree with Xbox's marketing strategy here, but I wanted your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like, of course, he's going to say that because that's kind of their strategy, right?
Right.
The one kind of thing that you skipped over was the developers of like Insomniac Games working on Ratchet and Clank, and said it's impossible to achieve the same gameplay experience in that title on PS4, which makes sense, right? I mean, I literally just alluded to that and how quick load times would be and how easily it would be to jump from area to area. But I mean, so what? I mean, that's what you're getting with the new generation. What's wrong with that? You know what I mean? You're getting a better system. You're getting a better hardware device. Like, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for those new experiences.
Right. Exactly. I agree 100%. So I thought it was a little weird. I mean, I agree that when he talks about being entertainment and community driven, and it's important to consider what gaming is about, because some of my favorite games could run on the crappiest PC. But I also know that something that like Horizon Zero Dawn or Death Stranding just released on PC, which was one of my games of the year last year. And the graphical fidelity and some of the frame rate increases made that game look even more enticing to play. Right. And made me want to jump back into it because I watched a video comparing it to the PS4, and there wasn't a huge amount of difference, but there was enough there that I was like, whoa, this is something that I would want because this looks like it's just going to feel better to play. And so I just don't agree with that. And I think he said that again, because like you said, it is their marketing strategy. So he has to kind of play off their delay, I guess. Right.
Right. Exactly.
So, all right, Matt, we'll move on here. I should have actually jumped these two news stories together. I didn't realize that there was two stories from Assassin's Creed in the same week, but one of the criticisms, and I know I have this, of Odyssey, is just too big. It's full of side quests, optional missions, land masses. It takes over 100 hours to see and do everything if you really want to. It's constantly on PSN profiles. People are still playing it. Over 1,000 people are playing it per week on that site. Yeah. And so it's not like it's, something that's set down. It's just too big for somebody like me too. Apparently Valhalla has taken a step back from that philosophy as it scraps side quests almost entirely. Wow. GameSpot spoke with narrative director Darby McDevitt, and he stated that side quests in the traditional sense are, quote, almost non-existent. He explained that instead, world events will take place, which sometimes happen seemingly at random and won't lead you down a typical quest line. Quote, this approach was chosen to fit the narrative as the protagonist Ivor arrives in England as an invader rather than a native. Having quest givers left and right would not make sense, as you're still actively trying to make alliances. I actually agree with that. It's, for once, they actually thought about how the narrative and the gameplay would sync up, and I'm happy to hear that. Because it does amaze me when Cassandra can go all over the place and everybody's like, oh, yes, you. Excuse me. I've never seen you before, but I have a quest for you. Come, Well, I mean, I feel like they explain it away because she's a mercenary, right? Like she's that's kind of like a hired hand. So like, of course, people, would have a mercenary would have a certain look, right? So you kind of see who they are. Like, oh, okay, well, that's someone who can help me if I pay them enough. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, that's for me is kind of how like I justify it in my brain. But I do understand your point. You're going all over these war-torn countries or islands, right? And, playing both sides to a large extent, Yeah. Yeah, you make a fair point. I mean, a mercenary would be very recognizable. It just, and it never bothered me during Odyssey, but I think it would have bothered me with Valhalla. It's like, oh, I'm invading your land and destroying and raping and pillaging everything, but you have a quest for me. Right. Yeah, 100%. So, but that also helps too, because then I won't feel like I'm missing a huge amount of narrative, because with The Witcher, side quests always became their own like mini narratives. And with Odyssey, sometimes they became like their own mini narratives. And so I won't feel like I'm missing out necessarily. And I think that's a better fit for Valhalla. And the more I hear about this game, the more I think I'll probably just wait and get the PlayStation 5 version. But that I definitely want it because it sounds smaller. It sounds more approachable. It sounds a little bit better to play.
Are they doing the upgrade though?
They did announce that a PlayStation 5 version is also in the works. They did not say anything about an upgrade yet. So we'll see. But if it boils down to an upgrade, I will buy it on sale for $39.99 a month after it comes out, and then just upgrade the PlayStation 5 version instead of paying $70. So we'll see.
Yeah. Smart.
All right. Just some quick Far Cry 6 news here, Matt. If you saw the announcement trailer this week, that's great. They finally released pre-order stuff as well. And there is a pre-order bonus of a Libertard skin for your canine companion. There's a collector edition that also includes a flamethrower. It's a 72 centimeter replica that doesn't actually spit flames, but is reminiscent of past high-priced editions that put dumb fun at the forefront. So I don't know if you saw that or not, but it is interesting looking. It's a little baby miniature flamethrower. Probably made out of cheap plastic would be my guess. So if you get a chance, look that up. Far Cry 6 will also receive 3 pieces of post-launch DLC via Season Pass. You also get your hands on collector case, an art book, 10 stickers, an exclusive steelbook and soundtrack, a Chorizo keyring, and a map of Yara. And so apparently the flamethrower also comes with instructions on how to put it together. So you get all that for $199.99.
Dang. I'm looking at it now. Yep. That looks pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty intense little piece of hardware.
Yeah. It looks interesting.
Yeah.
So my days of collector's editions, I think, are behind me.
100%.
I will get steelbook editions still, but even those, if those steelbook editions jump to $99.99, I will probably not do that.
Yeah.
Which I fully anticipate them doing. So
100%.
This may be a digital generation for me. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. I put this in here because I just thought it was fascinating. Last week in the UK sales charts, of course, Last of Us Part 2 was crushing the sales charts. But I thought it was funny because the week ending July 11th of 2020 in the UK, they released weekly sales charts. Formula One 2020 outsold Animal Crossing and The Last of Us Part 2 and Mario Kart 8 to take the top spot. I did not know Formula One was that big, at least with the games.
I mean, it's like their NASCAR.
Yeah, I guess. I just didn't realize that. But I feel like when we get NASCAR games, I never see them at the top of the charts.
Yeah,
so that was just surprising to me. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought that was really interesting. I mean, I guess that is a more European thing. So, kudos to Formula One for knocking Last of Us, Animal Crossing, and Mario Kart, and Minecraft out of the top positions there. So that's the reason I include that little top 10 there.
Yeah.
More important to me, though, is Sony's DualSense controller. Because although they haven't talked about alternative DualSense color schemes yet, Sony apparently said they, quote, at some point plan to in the near future. The platform holder also intends to roll out its next-gen system later this year and promised PS5 pre-orders will be telegraphed rather than opened at a moment's notice. Jeff Keighley, of course, as part of a recent Summer Games Fest live stream, was speaking with Eric Lempel of Sony, and he said, quote, right now it's a hard enough job to get the unit that we showed out, but we'll talk about it at some point. And it seems like he grinned quite wide about it. So it sounds like they'll probably have a ton of different versions. And so if you're not getting a launch one, you may get a sweet looking alternate version of the PS5. I wouldn't be shocked by that. Not just the controller, but I wouldn't be surprised if like Horizon Forbidden West gets like a custom skinned release bundle. And so it might be worth waiting for if you're one of those people who wants one of those decorative ones. You don't need a launch title one or launch one.
I mean, it would really just depend on the design for me.
Same here. I do think that I'm okay with the white. I'm not bothered by it like most people. So for me, I'd be okay with having that white beast in my room. It'll go on my white shelf. So
I was about to say my TV stand and shelf for it are already white, so fits perfectly for me.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. Matt, the other thing about that is that I'm hoping for is that the Dualsense, and we talked about this way back in our expectations for PS5. We were talking about how we would hope they'd allow us to customize the controllers next gen, like Microsoft's Design Lab. Right. So maybe, just maybe, they'll let us do that as well.
Ooh, wait.
We'll have to see. What was also clear, though, was that the DualSense is being pushed pretty hard because that Jeff Keighley event, showed off Astrobot. And I thought that was really cool. Did you watch that at all?
No, I forgot. I'm going to have to go back and watch it after this.
It was really cool. And just talk about that for half a second, because the next story I have ties into this. He showed how, the sound and everything that comes out of the controller. So if you're the kind of person who hated the speaker on the DualShock, I'm sorry, the DualSense is going to be twice as bad. But he talked about also the feedback and the resistance. And he talked about how Astrobot's playroom isn't just like a demo area. It's actually like a mini game that is pre-installed on every PlayStation 5. So you don't even have to download it. And so if you got to play Astrobot VR at all, and you enjoyed it like I did, be ready, because PS5 will have Astrobot's own little mini game. It's not just a tech demo. I mean, it does, because it shows off everything the PlayStation 5 controller can do, but it's also like a full miniature game from my understanding. So he went through and showed a lot of that. And so that's where it ties into this next news story, because also speaking with GameSpot, game director Keith Lee talked about how Godfall will be using the DualSense. And he said what is exciting about the DualSense controller is it has stereo vibration in terms of the rumblers, as well as resistance on the triggers. So one of the things you can do is create for the first time a sensation of your weapon hitting another weapon and how it resonates. The fact that if you're sliding across the ground, depending on the surface of the material, you might slide on gravel or sand or water. The way the vibration works feels like the way those textures or those surfaces would feel. And so, I mean, that's a little bit of hyperbole there, being a little hyperbolic, I think, in that way. I'm not going to be like, oh, wow, this is what sand feels like on my fingers when I'm running across sand on the DualSense. But I do think, that heaviness that you feel when you're walking through sand and your feet keep sinking, I think that's what they are talking about. Like, you're going to feel a heaviness, or when you're in water, you're going to feel that slight gliding resistance. And so Keighley was pointing a lot of that out during the live stream as well. And Godfall director Keith Lee seemed to echo the same thing too, talking about how even when the weapons hit against each other in combat, if you're parrying someone, you're going to feel maybe if you hit, you're going to feel like a echoing vibration when that weapon hits your weapon.
Nice.
So I'm excited to see what this actually feels like. Sony's pushing this DualSense so hard. I don't think it's a gimmick anymore. I think it's something they really believe in.
Yeah.
And so, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I just want
Does that stuff excite you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, we talked about, immersion in the game. I feel like that's just going to add to it. Right.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's up to the developers to utilize these features. Right. So we kind of have to wait on them to see how excited they are about it and how much they are getting into the utilization of these actual settings on the device, on the controller itself.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll see. It's got me excited. I will say that.
Yeah, me too.
The other thing that's got me excited, as we move on here, is Dragon's Dogma, which is a RPG from Capcom that, of course, got a re-release on the PlayStation 4 with some upgraded textures and all the DLC. Apparently, it's getting an anime adaptation later this year. The series will launch through Netflix on September 17th of 2020. And the company gave the very first look at the project with artwork from it this past week. I haven't played Dragon's Dogma. It's on my backlog. But because I know that they're releasing a series along the lines of it associated with it, I feel like it's going to be one of those games I go ahead and try out. Because we've also got a little bit of a lull from Ghost of Tsushima up through, the new systems. Really, because, I mean, Valhalla and Watch Dogs and all that stuff come out right around the time of those new systems. So I think Dragon's Dogma will probably be something I jump into. Was that a game that ever caught your attention? Anything you were ever interested in?
No, not really. I never really was into Dragon's Dogma. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, the screenshot looked pretty cool, but I don't know. Yeah, I just didn't think it was like my kind of game.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
All right. So this I also thought was big news this week. Metacritic, probably a little embarrassed finally at the way that review bombers are attacking games like The Last of Us Part 2, had temporarily paused Ghost of Tsushima verdicts while encouraging fans to play the behemoth open world game. It held back the review feature of their site for over 24 hours, telling those who were eager to rate the release on launch day to, quote, spend some time playing before coming back on July 18th to review the game. The game since then has amassed over 450 user reviews and secured a rating of 8.9. So it sounds like there's no review bombing going on with Tsushima. However, Matt, I found this on Twitter today. Several users who rated Ghost of Tsushima very highly then went back and on their last post, their last game they had rated before this was Last of Us Part 2, and they'd given it zeros. And so they bombed Last of Us Part 2 and purposely inflated Ghost of Tsushima. And so it sounds like some weird Sony fanboyism going on where they'll support one first-party title over another by review bombing one, but praising another. But they had to wait 24 hours to do it anyway, which I thought was a good call. But I don't feel like that's enough for Metacritic, because if I really want to bomb review a game, I think I can wait 24 hours to do that after the game releases.
Right.
So this, unfortunately, it's going to look like, because it's got almost a 9.0, it's going to look like that worked. But I'm waiting for the next big game that gets review bombed where 24 hours doesn't do anything for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
They also did that apparently for Paper Mario Origami King. I didn't look at the review scores for that, but I noticed they had done the same thing for that game as well since it came out the same day. I would prefer them do something like Steam where you have to have an account logged in and it has to be connected to one of your PlayStation, Xbox, or Switch or PC accounts, because Steam won't let you rate a game unless you, I believe, have played a couple hours of it. So I can't log into Steam and rate a game that I don't own or that I haven't played. And I actually would prefer to see that. I would prefer to see that you link your account on one of those systems, and then it reads whether or not you've actually played the game, even if it's just for an hour before you can review it, or 2 hours.
Right.
I know that's a lot for Metacritic on the back end, and that would be a lot with different gaming companies to work together on with them. But actually, I don't even think they need to do that, right? Because PSN profiles, Sony has no process in that. But PSN profiles reads my PS profile and recognizes the trophies I have, right? So I guess maybe not. Maybe you just have to earn an achievement or a trophy, and then you could review the game.
Yeah. Maybe it's one of those. I mean, if that's the case, I mean, maybe it has to be certain length into the game, you know?
Yeah, I agree 100%. So we'll see what happens. I'm curious. Don't expect this to be the end of review bombing, because Metacritic did it successfully with one game, 2 games. I expect in the future people will wait just longer than the 24 hours to make sure they bomb it. So
yeah, for sure.
All right. Matt, we talked about Sony pre-orders already. Of course, I think I already talked about this with you just earlier, but it was part of that other story. Of course, what happened was after the interview with Jeff Keighley, or right before it somehow, something happened where when he was talking with Eric Lempel, he commented on that Sony there was rumors going around that Sony was opening pre-orders for its next-gen console through Amazon. And so many people freaked out and started waiting in line at GameStops and different locations to make sure they got a pre-order. Yeah. And Lempel simply said he has no idea how that rumor got started. They had nothing to do with it, but he said, I got a message from someone saying people are lining up at stores and they had no idea why. I think it's safe to say we'll let you know when pre-orders will happen. It's not going to happen in a minute's notice. And so if you are one of those people eager to get a PS5, calm down. They will let you know.
No,
I promise.
I want it now.
I know.
Actually, I don't know if you have this in here or not, but while you're on the subject of pre-ordering, I did see something in my email today from GameSpot about how there's been a leak in the PlayStation Direct source code, It reveals an error message
I
that
did
reads,
see that,
you
yes.
can only purchase one version of the PS5 console, disc or digital. You have already added one PS5 console to your cart. So it makes it more
I did
likely.
see that news.
Yeah, so it kind of makes it more likely that maybe you can only get one at a time.
Yeah, I did see that, and I did have that in here, I think, a little bit later on, because I kind of go through the news sequentially as it happens throughout the week. And that was a more recent piece of news. So apparently they found that and saw that. Now, that seems like that's going to be off of Sony's website, but that doesn't mean that, and I imagine they'll probably tell retailers that too, or ask retailers to do that.
Right.
But that doesn't stop me from ordering one from GameStop, one from Amazon, and one from the PlayStation Store.
Right. Agreed.
Now, I don't need to do that, and I won't, but I do have some concern over scalpers trying to do that and gouging people. But it's clear that Sony's watching out for that kind of behavior immediately, knowing that, and I also had this in the news. I don't remember if we talked about this last week or not, and I think I had it in this week as well, or I saw it this week as well, that Sony is ramping up from 5 to 6 million up to 9 to 10 million units, which tells me that if they're ramping up production that much, they're doubling their production, that they must know that people have been talking about those $499 and $399 price points, and they must be confident that they're going to hit those and know that people are happy about those price points and sell a ton of PlayStation 5s. Because if they were coming in at like $699 and they saw all these people about $399 and $499, they'd be like, oh, well, let's not overmake these at the moment because they're going to be kind of pissed.
Yeah.
Right. So the demand must be there, and they must know that that price point is going to fit somehow, or it's going to be within that price point.
Yeah. I would also argue at least a little bit that it could also be because of COVID, because they know they need to pump these out. They feel like there's going to be a big launch no matter what, because people are stuck at home. They're going to be wanting to play video games more. The people, if it spikes again in the winter, like people are going to want to get their kids something to play with. So because they're going to be being schooled from home,
Maybe. And that could very well be it too, because gaming sales have increased dramatically since COVID has gone. And so maybe they're looking at the sales data and looking at COVID not going away and going, well, okay, it's impossible to find a Switch anywhere or a Ring Fit, so maybe, and PlayStation's still selling well. So maybe they recognize the demand. And I think also they get data from looking at their YouTube views and stuff like that and realize that how many people tune in live to their presentations.
Yeah.
And they know that that's the people who can tune in, but there are also people who can't tune in, right? So we'll see what happens. I'm interested. It's clearly Sony knows the demand is there, and something's going to come out that's going to be right, where people are going to want this machine right away.
Yeah.
So, all right. Now, I know there's a big talk about, speaking of Sony and digital and the two different editions, I know there's a big talk about how digital seems to be increasing and why physical should stick around forever. I do want to point out this story because I found this fascinating. If you plan on picking up the digital versions of Danganronpa, particularly on the PlayStation Vita, you'll want to act sooner rather than later. Publisher NIS America has announced that multiple entries in the visual novel franchise will be taken off the PlayStation Store in September without any reason why. The first will take place on August 31st when Danganronpa, another episode, Ultra Despair Girls, is no longer purchasable on the Vita. As for Sony's second handheld system, Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc and Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair will also be taken off the store on September 4th. Danganronpa 3 V3 Killing Harmony, which is the one I was going to purchase and download because I have the other ones, I just haven't played through them yet, is losing its digital version on both Vita and PS4 on September 25th, 2020. Now, what's odd about that is it doesn't look like Danganronpa 1 and 2 Reload Remaster has been affected by this. But people are starting to speculate that what's going to happen is the titles will be republished by Spike Chunsoft itself. And so they may go away and then come right back. And I guarantee that's probably what's going to happen here, is that they're probably actually going to do a reload, or maybe they're switching rights or whatever. But I don't think this is the end of the Danganronpa being on the store. But I can see where people be screaming out, this is why physical exists. This is why I need physical discs.
Yeah, of course.
Right. I don't think that's the case here. I think those games will continue to remain digital. I think they'll be like the Sherlock Holmes games where there was a publisher dispute and they had to take them down for 2 months and then they put them back up after they solved the dispute. So that's free money on the table with those games. They're not going to take those down and just leave all of their Danganronpa series off the store. So I just wanted to point that out. I think it's one thing that gets lost a little bit in the digital versus physical, unless it's a licensing issue like a Capcom or like a Marvel thing. I mean, you're not going to see, you're not going to see a lot of games disappear necessarily. I think it's more so what happens is that publisher is reloading it or re-upping it for one reason or another because of rights. They're not that stupid. They don't want to lose that money.
Right.
Even if they sell 10 copies one week, that's, $60 a piece. That's still $600 they didn't have before. So
true.
All right, Matt. Let's see. We already talked about Phil Spencer. So I don't know why I have this news story twice. It's very similar. So I apologize about that. I talked about the amount of stuff being shipped. Oh, I did want to wrap up here, I think, with with a couple of news stories. One, Uncharted is still not being filmed yet. So I just wanted to point that out because that movie will never get made. It just won't. Two, Sucker Punch had worked on several games ideas before Ghost of Tsushima. Now, the video has been pulled from YouTube since then, but apparently there was a demo for a game called Prophecy, where you were in a medieval setting, and there was sword fighting and Assassin's Creed-esque parkour. And that was apparently one of the games that Sucker Punch had worked on, because they had said before they settled on feudal Japan that they had thought about doing a medieval setting. They had thought about doing some famous Scottish explorer, I think, or townsman. They had like 4 different ideas. And so if you can find that footage online, apparently there is a 10-minute vertical slice of a game called Prophecy that Sucker Punch was working on at some point. So you may want to look into that. I can hear you typing and looking over there as well. The other 2 news stories I want to wrap up with is Spider-Man Miles Morales Adventure will run at 4K or 60 frames per second with an optional performance mode. And so we've seen other games do this. Neo 2 did this earlier this year, where you could choose graphical fidelity or 60 frames per second. Apparently, Insomniac Games tweeted out this past week that there will be an optional performance mode, which offers 4K resolution at 60 frames per second. For reference, Spider-Man, of course, ran at 30 frames per second on PlayStation 4. So you can imagine what it would be like swinging through the city at 60 frames per second instead of 30. So that should be kind of cool as well. Last but not least, Matt, I wanted to touch on this story. Did you see the leaked trailer for a full motion video game, an FMV title called Gamer Girl?
I have not, no.
Apparently, Wales Interactive unveiled Gamer Girl, an FMV title in which you play as a live stream chat moderator. You're tasked with guiding the choices of up-and-coming streamer AbbyCakes99 while uncovering the identity of anonymous predator who lurks in the chat. It sounds kind of creepy. The game's announcement was met with a lot of criticism. People took to Twitter complaining about how, quote, online abuse is real and still happening every day. Gamer Girl seems to raise awareness of this issue, was Wales Interactive's response, because people were creeped out at the fact that it looked like you literally stalked down or chased down, or you were experiencing with this girl being chased down or stalked down by this guy or this person. And so it's a cheesy looking FMV title game. It actually looks really bizarre. Go watch the trailer. I don't even have words for it. I just wanted to highlight that because I thought that was a very unusual thing. Are you into any of those video type FMV experiences?
I mean, some of them look cool, but I've never actually played one. I was going to say, are these like the new like B movies? Is that what's happening?
It seems like it. It does seem kind of like that if you look at it. But if you get a chance to go watch that trailer, it was a little disturbing to me. I was like, this is a really weird ass game, and I don't know who would want to play this. But apparently it exists and is a thing and is coming out at some point this year. All right, Matt. That's all the news I've got.
That's it.
That's it for
That's all we got.
Like I said, it was kind of a weird news week. I didn't find anything particularly compelling, so I just wanted to kind of touch on everything. The only thing I did find super interesting is that the PlayStation blog still does not have the new games that are coming out listed. However, I did find them once again. So the games that you have from July 20th through July 26th, I'm just going to read off there's only a few games coming out this week. So I'm just going to read them off to you. Little Town Hero, One Dog Story, Trine Ultimate Edition, Ultimate Racing 2D, Rock of Ages 3, Make a Break, Freaks, Super Toy Cars 2, Max and the Book of Chaos, and Tannenberg. And so I'm sorry that, it seems weird because I swore some of those games we already read about, like Little Town Hero. Yeah. So unless it got pushed back, those were the ones that I was able to find listed. Same with Super Toy Cars 2. I remember us making jokes about that one. So I guess some of those had gotten pushed back, but that's really it. It's kind of an off week. Nothing too terribly exciting to talk about. I do hope that we get a Ghost of Tsushima 2, even though I haven't started the first one yet, because it just seems like people are loving this game. But I also hope Sucker Punch gives us something like Prophecy. I would love to, I did not get to watch that trailer before it got pulled down, but I would love to see them take one of those ideas they had and continue to run with it. So, yeah. I mean, you'll see.
I'll send you the link because I found it online.
Okay, perfect. So I will check that out. Go check it out. I'm sure it'll be worth checking out or watching. And enjoy Ghost of Tsushima until then, I guess, because
for sure.
I've heard nothing but great things about it. So I'm excited to.
I mean, I played the first little bit of it. I did play something else. Ghost of Tsushima. Duh.
I was going to ask you if you had played some of it.
Yeah, I played the first little bit of it. I think I played it for like half hour or so.
Like it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it seems pretty great so far. And in the very little bit that I played, again, maybe half an hour, maybe. Okay. But yeah, it was, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'll be diving into that this week once I have some free time and family's not here and baby's asleep. So, but that's really it. I apologize. This has been kind of a quiet week in news. Not exactly the most exciting stuff, but we delivered it to you. Next time you talk with us will probably be our Last of Us 2 spoiler cast. I think we'll actually, I was going to make that a Patreon exclusive. I may for like a week or so, and then I think I'll release that to the general public. We'll see. But I think it'll depend on how much we do. We may even do it in 2 parts, depending on how much we talk. And then, we'll see what happens. I'll let everyone know on the next podcast what's happening, but we will record that. I have pages and pages of notes on my phone. And so I promise there will be plenty for me to say about. All right, Matt. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Thanks for having me, Robert.
Yes, I'm going to go get some sleep, hopefully. And if not, I'll be up tonight editing this podcast at 2 a.m.
There you go.
So if you like what you heard and you want to help me out or help Matt out or help us both out, please head over to patreon.com/weare1you2. And if you don't want to do that, share, rate, like, and subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting service. We appreciate the listens and leave us a nice review. We really appreciate that too. And until next time, game on.
Game on. Rockabye Robert, outro music. He's going to fall asleep really quick.
Yep.
Good times. Good times.